On Tuesday, James Comey, head director of the FBI, was fired by Donald Trump, and that caused a bit of a kerfuffle. And I'm going to say a bunch of statements in a row that are going to sound like they contradict each other, but they don't. James Comey is an awful person. The FBI is awful and should be disbanded. But it's also quite problematic for the president, who's under investigation by the FBI, to release him, obviously to fire him during the investigation. But I also don't think that there is any collusion between Trump and Putin. No. So someone contradict me real quick.
No, I think you're 100% right in all of those statements. And it's interesting because I was watching. I usually have a problem with a lot of things Maxine Waters does and says because of corruption. And when I get pushback on her, I'm told off by all sorts of liberals. But she said something that it was wrong for Trump to fire Comey, but if Clinton had won, she should have fired Comey. And I can actually see a consistent logic with that. And let me explain. What if Clinton had gotten in and now keep in mind, and she was not under active investigation, meaning the Clinton Foundation investigation, which Comey alluded to in testimony, was not a thing, and her email scandal was done with, then it was perfectly within her right to fire him, and I think she should have fired him exactly for what Rosenstein laid out. Comey handled the whole email thing very, very poorly, according to how the FBI is supposed to handle things, as well as the fact that he added the added intent to a statute of law, which I have a massive problem with. But Trump firing him while he's under investigation is just bad. It's such a bad move all the way around. And the only thing that makes any sense is that he's just a petty, vindictive idiot.
Yes. So that's what I meant, right? So I think what people are going to take this as being an example of, or rather illustrative of, is that Trump is trying to hide something about, Comey was getting too close to the truth. I don't think that's within Comey's capabilities specifically to be that close to the truth that's worth firing. But even if he was, that doesn't change the fact that, to me, this says something I've always known about Trump, that he's petty and impulsive. And I think the first 100 days, even the first 2 months of his presidency, proved that pretty coherently. But
in terms of backing it up, being petty and just an idiot, when they passed the AHCA in the House, so it's still not a law. It has to go to the Senate, and they had a gigantic party in the Rose Garden. It's like you won like one step in like a 4-step process to get this thing made a law, and you're celebrating. I mean, that's just horrible. And the only reason you did that is because everything else you've tried to do in this 100 days has been shot down.
Yes, Richard, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know I had made any noise. I was, for me, what I've seen with Comey.
I'm surprised. Okay, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, from what I've seen with Comey and the whole incident with Hillary and with the Stephen Colbert audience reacting the way they did when he tried to make the joke about it, is that Trump, and I mentioned this, I think it was last show, that Trump's basically the masked magician, and what he's doing is what normally would have happened is if any president would have taken office and the FBI and them had a tenuous relationship, they would have gone through some steps to get them removed and replaced. That's what they would have done, but they would have done it in such a way that it would have normally not really garnered much attention or much ire, and that's how it would have went down. And I mean, what Trump does is he's so brash and so just petty and reflexive that he did it in such a way that it exposes the trick. It exposes the idea that, oh, the FBI is this independent organization that is never used to to investigate or look into the opponents of a political administration or anything like that. That would be absurd. The FBI is above the reproach, and certainly nothing like a tarmac meeting between the DOJ and somebody under investigation could possibly, besmirch the integrity of such an illustrious organization such as that. Like that, what he's doing is he's just tearing all that apart.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the story of his presidency has been poor implementation of ideas that might be able to get through had he been implemented properly. Even the Muslim ban might have been more palatable had it been done, over the stretch of maybe 3 or 4 months. But it's just like this idea he keeps just slamming things home. And so from my perspective, I think the most frightening takeaway from this whole Comey being fired thing is that Trump is incredibly petty, incredibly impulsive, and does not think things through. And the most frightening aspect would be, regardless of whether let's say there is a conspiracy or whether there's not a conspiracy, the idea that you would think that firing the head of the FBI, regardless of whether or not he was actually close to the truth or not, it's just such bad optics. It's so politically stupid. It shows that he's not thinking about anything in the long term. What do you think, Adair?
I mean, really, I think we talk about Trump way too damn often. I'm quite frankly incredibly sick of it. Nothing that he's doing is remotely surprising. Nothing that he's doing is remotely, at least at this juncture, remotely worrisome. He fired an FBI director. Who actually cares? The fact that this is dominating the news cycle in the way that it is, in such that the mainstream media is like, oh, it must be mean we're getting close to something between Trump and Russia. And then us having to actually sit here, waste the time, the energy, and the brain power on refuting those claims and say, no, it makes perfect sense. Please shut the hell up and go back under your rock. Is frankly just tiring. And I really, I cannot bring myself to give. I can't bring myself to care. I cannot do it. He fired somebody. Woo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What? Wow. Okay. Wow. What I was gonna say,
he's listening. Can't say he's not listening. Good.
All right. So what I was going to say is that, the way that people are treating it like it's this gigantic thing and it's going to halt the investigation in its tracks, when you still have the people who are doing the day-to-day investigation are still employed. Like, this isn't the Saturday Night Massacre where he fired a whole mess of people until he got rid of the special prosecutor and everyone that worked under them. He just fired the director of the FBI, which is within the president's purview. I mean, that's his right. And he's not firing off all of the people on the ground who are doing whatever the investigation into the Russia story is. So to say that this is stepping into it, I don't know. I don't care. I do still think and still believe that a special investigator is needed for not only the Russia thing, but also for the server thing, because like you said, the meeting on the tarmac kind of tarred that entire investigation. And then Comey throwing out the need for intent, which wasn't in the statute, just kind of is flabbergasting. So I'd like to see 2 special prosecutors assigned right now.
Oh yeah.
Wait, a quick follow, because there was a comment and I want to get to this. Someone named Primal Point of Order said grand jury subpoenas were issued in the FBI's Russian investigation hours before Comey was fired. And literally, because him being fired does not affect the investigation, so it's really not worth talking about. It's just more pointless filler in the news. It gets Trump's name in the headlines.
Well,
people don't talk about
people didn't realize
that
James Comey is actually Batman, and so him not being part of the investigation is going to dramatically affect the ability for the FBI to be able to do it. I mean, now it's going to be it's stopped.
So
there's some truth to the effect that it has a chilling effect on whoever's going to replace them. But the person that's acting that has a whole history that we should probably touch on maybe. But go ahead and make your point, Brandon.
No, we do. No, I do want to talk on Comey. I do want to speak specifically on the Russia investigation. But prior to that, I just want to say this. I'm reminded of that quote from an intelligence official a few months ago when they were trying to cool down people's expectations about this investigation. They were saying there's a lot of smoke. There's a lot of smoke, but there's no fire here. And by fire, they meant the evidence of direct collusion between the Trump campaign and Putin with the intention of getting him elected president of the United States of America. And so what becomes across as incredibly funny to me, right, is how good Trump is at making himself seem guilty of being involved in a vast conspiracy. And I think that's really the takeaway here. And I think it's a much sexier and even palatable option. I know it doesn't seem that way, but it's a much sexier and more palatable option, both intellectually and I guess even say, socially and, for your ego, psychologically, to believe that the reason we're at right now is because Trump is this sort of 10th level chess mastermind, or even that Putin is some sort of 10th level chess mastermind, despite the fact that you would think that if he was that smart, Russia wouldn't have the GDP of the state of Georgia. You would think that if he was that smart, Russia would be a better place to live. No offense to any Russians in the audience. I'm sure Russia's lovely in the summer. I would love to own a house.
Or Georgia.
I agree on a couple of
I guess my point is this, right? So it's like, I still don't think that there's going to be enough out of any investigation. Now, but I agree with you, John, that there should be a special investigator, special prosecutor appointed so this doesn't happen again. But I think that when they do that, they still won't find anything other than maybe run-of-the-mill corruption, run-of-the-mill organized crime racket between global oligarchs that you would expect to 1 or 2 degrees of the norm, right? But it's clear to me how the Trump administration is they're just a bunch of sketchy people who don't know how to just even exist in the political limelight without making themselves seem incredibly guilty. Look at Spicer; he was hiding in the bushes. It's like come on. It's amazing how guilty they seem.
But that's what it is. It's like even though I want special prosecutors, I hard agree. There's nothing there for Russia. I don't think that there's going to be anything. I mean, if you look at it is. And if you look at just the technical background, and as I've said numerous times, you look into the technical details of what the DNC hack was and how they got to an attribution for it and who was involved in making that, you're like, this is nothing. There's nothing here. Why is this being touted out as like evidence of major state involved in another major state's elections? This is absolutely nothing, and yet we're saying that with 100% positive proof that this is an act of war. And I just think that, like you said, if there was a special prosecutor, and that's why I want one, is because we can get to the bottom of it, show that there is absolutely nothing there.
At the same time, it could be nonpartisan as opposed to bipartisan, because bipartisan is just not the same thing. But from my perspective, the reason why Trump probably fired Comey, it's surprising that he waited this long to fire Comey, right? I think it's surprising that he didn't fire him on January 21st. But he's firing him now because Comey keeps his name in the news, and that's probably just the end all be all of it. Like Trump and Comey and Russia are in the news constantly because I think there's a certain amount of legitimacy to the claim that Comey's a grandstander. like there is a certain amount of legitimacy to that. Or rather, if not actively, his name is in the news a lot. Like Comey has become this figure for both the left and the right that they're fighting. That the saga of Comey, the epic poem of Comey, is perhaps the biggest indication of where we are as a country politically, and that every week or so he goes from being a hero of the left to a villain of the left, from a hero to the right to a villain of the right. People want him fired, people want him martyred. Now he's in the resistance, and it reveals just how incoherent the ideology of both parties are.
Yeah, Democrats were calling for him to lead the investigation now outside of the FBI, lead the Congress's investigation.
Yeah. And WikiLeaks offered him a job.
I mean, one thing I think is important is what it's distracting us from and what it results in not being in the headlines. Yes. One thing, Medicare for All has been getting increasing support in the House. It's not there yet. There's still some, I think, 80 some odd Democrats that haven't signed on, but that's significantly less than it was a month ago. And so there's been some significant progress there. Flint still has poison water, and they're trying to steal the people's house for not paying for it. And there's a whole lot of other stories going on. And so not to push us, but we actually are 20 minutes in, so I think we can move to the next thing we want to talk about.
Thank God.
Well, I mean, I just want to say Comey is a
you
piece
can
of
finish
shit,
wrap us up.
Right? Yeah, waterboarding.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's
Who in the FBI is not a literal piece of shit? Name one person in the FBI that is not.
Right. So
name one.
The FBI and the FBI specifically, and the deep state generally, has become this hero of the left because they have positioned themselves in certain ways as being on the opposite side of the Trump administration, not even of the Republicans.
We're supposed to be moving on, but I just asked you to name one person that was not a piece of shit.
I mean, we're moving on to the bigger implications.
I'm sure there's some secretaries there doing good work.
Nope, you're in the FBI. You're a piece of shit.
Hey, Richard, what were you saying about
the association?
You were saying about the appointee who's filled in, who's the designated fill-in?
Yeah,
McCabe.
McCabe is essentially his wife was embroiled in a bit of controversy from taking a large sum of money, somewhere between $450,000 and $750,000 from a super PAC associated with Terry McAuliffe, who is a known associate of Hillary Clinton, and so it was part of all that whole thing, and so. That's who's out there making statements now. Yeah, and so essentially there's a strong chance that he's very Clinton favored, so whatever statements you hear coming out of the FBI now, which I've heard in the media be treated as absolute fact since somebody at the FBI said it, now we know that's the reality, that's the fact of what the FBI thinks or does or whatever, which I think is absurd on its face, but also tinged with some Clinton touched by
this idea that at the FBI this idea is the FBI is some sort of objective organization that's just looking for the truth is just nonsense. They're a political organization. This ties deeply into the idea of like, well, Comey's actually a piece of garbage, right? And so I know John was going to talk about the fact that his history of waterboarding. Tell us about that.
He signed a memorandum authorizing waterboarding and defended it. I mean, Comey's done, actually, I will give Comey credit for pushing back against the NSA authorization to spy on every American basically illegally, but he also authorized waterboarding.
Yeah, and I mean, Comey's also famous for coming out and espousing this idea of the Ferguson effect, right? That it's like the rise in crime in certain urban areas in America was the result of people filming police shooting, which was making them more cautious about shooting people, but also more cautious about doing their job.